Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive paradox. It's a story of ultimate survival and just absolute boundless curiosity, all centered around an environment so incredibly hostile that it literally stayed hidden from humanity for thousands of years. So let's trace how we went from dreaming up a phantom continent to actually standing on the coldest, most unforgiving surface on Earth, Antarctica. You know, for thousands of years, the bottom of our globe was just a total blank spot. Imagine managing to survive the lethal, freezing oceans just to get near it, only to be greeted by nothing but towering walls of snow and endless white ice. It's an environment fundamentally incompatible with human life, which honestly makes our obsession with finding it all the more fascinating. Part 1. The Unknown Southern Land. So for centuries, maps actually feature this massive landmass right at the very bottom of the globe. They called it Terra Australis, the unknown southern land. But here's the wild part. Ancient geographers had absolutely zero proof it even existed. They simply theorized that a giant southern landmass was physically required just to balance out the known continents up north. It's crazy to think about, but this completely imaginary phantom continent tempted explorers for hundreds of years. Fast forward to the 1700s. The legendary explorer James Cook crossed the Antarctic Circle, sailing further south than anyone in history. Now, he never actually saw Antarctica himself because he was stopped by a literal wall of floating ice and thick fog. But his failure was a total geographic game changer. He basically proved that if this mythical land really existed, it was locked behind an impenetrable fortress of ice. Part 2. Breaching the ice walls. Well, in 1820, that ice fortress finally broke. And remarkably, it wasn't just one person who did it. 3 absolutely bold explorers from completely different nations, Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen, Edward Bransfield, and Nathaniel Palmer, they all independently navigated close enough to spot actual snow-covered land. Just like that, in a single year, a centuries-old myth suddenly became a hard geographic reality. But let's be clear, proving this was a solid continent wasn't some casual mapping exercise. Pushing further south meant facing temperatures far, far below zero, blinding snowstorms that could disorient a crew in seconds, and the constant, terrifying threat of towering icebergs. Seriously, just think about it. They were taking fragile wooden sailing ships into a literal gauntlet of giant floating ice crushers. No way I'm signing up for that. Yet despite the extreme lethality of it all, explorers pressed on. James Clark Ross braved these extremes to discover the Ross Sea and the massive Ross Ice Shelf, landmarks that, as you might guess, still bear his name today. By painstakingly mapping the coastline, Ross finally delivered the undeniable proof the world was waiting for. Antarctica wasn't just some floating ice cap, it was a massive, solid continent. Part 3. The Deadly South Pole Race. Now, reaching the coast was a massive triumph, sure, but the ultimate prize? That was the South Pole, the absolute harshest heart of the continent. Who would actually survive to claim it? 2 highly skilled teams stepped up to the plate, sparking one of the most intense and, frankly, tragically fateful rivalries in all of human history. The 1911 race became this stark study in contrasting strategies. On one side, Norway's Roald Amundsen meticulously planned a fast and light journey using sled dogs, and he successfully claimed the pole first in December 1911. Then you have Britain's Robert Falcon Scott, who arrived weeks later, only to find the Norwegian flag already waiting for him. But the true tragedy lay in the return journey. Scott and his entire team perished from the extreme cold and a lack of supplies. It's a profound, heavy tale of brilliant Norwegian triumph and heartbreaking British sacrifice. Part 4. A Continent for Science. So, with so many nations having shed blood, sweat, and tears on the ice over the years, it raises a pretty obvious question for our modern world. Who actually gets to own this massive, hard-won territory today? The answer is actually one of the most surprising achievements in modern diplomacy. Instead of becoming some geopolitical battlefield for territory and resources, the continent is fully shielded by the Antarctic Treaty System. In a remarkably rare moment of global consensus, the agreement ensures the land is explicitly not owned by any single country, but preserved entirely for peace and scientific study. Pretty amazing, right? And that brings us to modern Antarctica. It's officially the coldest, driest, and windiest continent on Earth. It's effectively a frozen desert with zero permanent human population. Yet it is constantly bustling with global scientists who willingly endure this hostility. And why?
Well, because the vital climate, ice, and wildlife data they extract from this isolated wasteland holds the absolute key to understanding global climate patterns, patterns that directly impact every single one of us.
As we wrap up this explainer, it's clear the conquest of Antarctica is an ultimate testament to human curiosity. We transformed an ancient imaginary myth on a map into a modern sanctuary for global science. Looking back at how far we pushed ourselves just to conquer the ice leaves us with one incredibly thrilling question. If Antarctica was our ultimate frontier of the past, what is humanity's next Terra Australis today? Where exactly will our curiosity drive us next?